and today I'm talking about, well, first of all, happy Valentine's Day because it is Valentine's Day, um, Sunday Valentine's Day today. But we are going to talk about the valuation of esports. How much is the industry worth? Um, Kind of really the problems around determining the valuation of esports right now, and some of those issues like that. All right, so let's get into it. So right now, current estimates show that, according to Newzoo, that esports is worth around $1 billion. $1 billion, and in 2021 is predicted to pretty much double that, to go to like 2 billion by 2023, 2022, like 3 to 5 billion. Those are the current estimates. But here's how they currently calculate the valuation of the industry. And just for frame of reference, the gaming industry by itself is worth around $300 billion. So literally like 0.5%. So right now, esports industry is worth about 0.5% of what the video game industry itself is worth. So let's talk about that. So how are they calculating the value of the esports industry? So there are a couple ways that they're doing it. So they're looking at professional esports, and they're looking at how much. So they're looking at professional esports. They're looking at how much each of the pro teams make, like how much are players paid and stuff like that. How much are teams actually making in prize winnings? How much teams are making in sponsorships and sponsorship deals? They're looking at how much money, through broadcasting is being made. They're looking at how much money for media rights is happening, like who pays for is someone paying for the right to like an event and that kind of stuff. Tournament winning, sponsorships, advertising dollars. Those are the kind of things that they're using to calculate that $1 billion. And that's fine and dandy, except there are a number of problems with that. So if I was looking at the value of an esports professional team, I think that the way that they're valuing the industry is 100% correct. Like, a team is based on its winnings, media rights, how much money, it's bringing in, kind of thing, a professional esports team. Unfortunately, I think that that's only one piece of the esports industry. You're missing a whole bunch of other pieces. For example, here's a question for you, actually. Would League of Legends exist right now if there was no esports? What do you think? Would League of Legends exist right now if there were no esports? So that's the big question, right? Would a game like League of Legends exist if there were no esports right now? It's a good question because a lot of people play the game. So I've been playing League of Legends for 10 years, and I'm just going to use League as an example because it's pretty much one of the biggest esports games, and it's also one of my favorite games. I've been playing for a really long time. So let's talk about League. So I started playing, I've been playing League for a really long time, like years and years and years now, like, I don't know, 2013, something like that. I mean, I don't even know. I'm just guessing year-wise. It's been so many years that I don't even know. But as I get into League more and more, one of the things that's driven me to continue to play it has been the competitive scene. Knowing that there are League of Legends Worlds, getting into the ranking system and trying to compete against those players playing in the World League, watching videos of the pros play, and that's motivated me. That motivation to continue to do better, to be like them, as good as them, has motivated me to continue to play League for years and years. So the big question is, would I personally be playing League if there was no such thing as an esport and pro scene around it? And it's a good question that I don't have the answer to. So one of the biggest problems with valuation of esports is that we're not taking into account the games themselves. Now, I'm not saying that there would be no League of Legends without esports. I'm not trying to make that conclusion at all. What I am saying is that I guarantee the user base would not be as high. and the game would not have the life that it currently does. That's not to say League of Legends wouldn't be happening right now, because it could still last 10 years. But I don't know if it would. I honestly don't know if a game like that could last that long. So, we do have other examples of games that have, but we've seen their user base decrease significantly. So, when we're talking about this valuation of esports, we really need to start talking about the games themselves, and how much money is esports bringing to a particular game. And just as I'll use League of Legends as another example. My one of my favorite players is Faker. So let's say I see Faker using a skin, playing a game, and he's using a certain character in a certain position or a certain skin. And I go and buy that character because, well, I saw Faker use this guy in support and do this really, or jungle, and use this really cool play. And I don't own that character, so I'm going to go buy that character, or I'm going to go buy the skin that he used to play that character. Is that revenue counted in esports? It's not, and it 100% should be, because that purchase would have never happened had there been no esports. So these are some systemic issues that we have in the esports industry, the way we're calculating these valuations. So the way we're valuing the industry is 100% incorrect. I mean, we have some right parts, but it's, for the most part, we have some things that are happening the way we value it that are really incorrect. I've watched, there are a few papers and some panel discussions about this topic that have recently come out, and brought up a lot of these issues. Different things, like even like looking at different companies and software that like would or would not exist. Like what is the profit that certain companies are making and are only around because of the industry of esports, like certain software as a service for like team management, stream management for esports, things like that, like how much money is being generated, like the Discord, for example. Like what would Discord be without esports? How much money would they be making? That's really the platform that's where it's occurring. I mean, same thing with Twitch. Look at Twitch and competitive video gaming and the amount of revenue that Twitch and YouTube gaming are making off of having people stream their video games, which may or may not exist without the competitive scene. So, when I look and I see 200,000 people watching League of Legends every single day, I have to say, well, would those people be watching if there was no pro scene in League of Legends? And what's the value added to that? That's how you determine the valuation of esports. You have to start accounting for those kind of things. Now, some of the reasons these things are not counted is A, it's very difficult to count them. And esports is so different than regular sports for so many different reasons. Like, for example, the equivalent of football is like League of Legends, but like, anyone can go out and play. It's much easier to calculate the valuation of a professional sports team, because a lot of it is like the team itself. Because like when I go out and me and my friends play football, like that has nothing to do with the professional. Like it's very easy to track like jerseys sold and stuff like that, but like it's different for video games because you actually can't play League of Legends without the company and game being involved, which makes it a lot more difficult to track that kind of stuff. So it's just, there's lots and lots of questions about the valuation of esports and how much the industry is really worth. So I think it's something that, I think that it's something that we need to talk about a lot more in the industry. I think we need to do a better job of figuring out where the money's really being made. And I think one of the big things that needs to happen is that when we are able to start to calculate, well, and just take league examples again, how much money from League of Legends that they make per year is actually contributed to esports. And one of the things, if we can start pinpointing those numbers or at least coming up with estimates, is we will have a much better idea of how much money, these games should actually be contributing to leagues and esports, because they may or may not be, they may be contributing too much or not enough. And I think those numbers are very important to those industries. And I guarantee like League of Legends itself, Riot as a company, And all Fortnite and whoever else has a certain number that they're like, okay, this is what's happening with our game because of the competitive scene. And we've watched this happen with other games where we know they come out and they're really good games sometimes, but if they can't get a competitive scene going and popularity in esports, the game will fail. So it goes to show how important the esports industry is to these games, how they can really make or break a game. It's where I come back to these games like League of Legends, and I said, where would League be right now if it was not part of the esports scene? That is my question. Once we can start to answer those kind of questions, we can much better determine these kind of valuations and start to figure out like what, you know, what the industry's really worth. We can't just look at the pro teams. That's the and that's another thing. How much is being made at the college scene or the high school scene? Like, why aren't we determining that to incorporate it? And maybe these are only small numbers. Like the college scene might be a small number compared to pro esports, but including those things into the calculation is the way that we need to do that to, for the industry to move forward and really figure out where the numbers really lie, because a large part of esports is the gaming community itself and figuring those tie-ins, which is really tricky to pull apart those numbers. So anyway, that's my ramble and take on esports industry valuation, how we've been determining the numbers, how we've been looking at how much the industry is really worth, how we have been, and kind of some of the things that we need to do to go forward. And it's going to be really difficult to get some of this data because we really need numbers from companies. Like the game companies themselves need to provide some numbers that they're probably holding back for good reason. So, they don't want all their internal numbers publicized. But we really need that kind of stuff if we're going to really move this industry forward and start to determine that kind of information. So hopefully, like, we start to get that. And I think that we're going to start to see those kind of numbers, and they're going to, all of a sudden we're going to see this big jump in industry valuation. Like, we're talking about this $1 billion right now, but I think all of a sudden we're going to see like, well, the industry is actually worth 50 billion. Like, it didn't increase $50 billion in 1 year, but what happened is we're using a much better algorithm to determine valuation of the industry than we used to do. So, that's my talk. Those are my thoughts right now. I'm doing a lot more research on this topic and reading a lot about it. So, I've read everything about it so far, trying to figure out more and more. So I think as more comes to light, you're going to see me talking about this a lot more. So anyway, guys, that's it. Have a good rest of your weekend. Get ready for the work week, all that good stuff. And later,